1. Get back. Come on. What's up, Facebook? We're on my Fireball Turnbull Facebook page. That's all I know. But welcome to the 5 to Go podcast, episode 323. We're going to recap what you just saw if you're watching this live, and that is the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400 at Dover Motor Speedway. I need to figure out how those jive, since I thought those were competing used car entities. But we're going to talk about Denny Hamlin's win, his 4th of the year, the oldest guy in the series, now with the most wins. And, from the penthouse to the outhouse, Shane Van Gisbergen, the first car to fall off the lead lap in this race when he cut a tire. We'll talk about Chase Elliott's dominant day, the end-season tournament, the battle of 2 ties on the opposite sides of the garage, and much more. So let's jump right in. I'm your co-host and co-creator, I suppose, Doug Fireball Turnbull. I get to be on the announcing team at Performance Racing Network, but I was not in Dover this weekend. In fact, I was down the street at a bar and grill watching this race with my ex-father-in-law, Joe, hanging out and really enjoying that, watching it on TNT there and listening on PRN at the same time. Brad, Gilly, Mark Garrow, the whole bunch, Performance Racing Network did one heck of the job. Also, write the Gridlock Guy column, the AJC, and a part of Channel 11, or 11 Alive's morning news team each morning with Traffic and Rachel Cox-Rosen. However, I'll be out this coming week because I'll be down at Daytona with the high schoolers at Decatur City Church and a bunch of other churches for camp. Get closer to God. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's why we're doing this on a Sunday night, because we won't be able to do a midweek show. Joining us here, carving away out on the day of rest. First off, he's our roving racing journo. He just watched this race with me. We actually watched it together on the computer from 2 different spots. Amazing what can happen with mid-2000s technology. He's our roving racing journo, our super fanalist. He's about to be a graduate from UNG. Throw that foam finger up, Devin Kupka. How we doing?
I am doing well. My last week of school at the University of North Georgia this week, and it's going to be a busy one indeed. Seems like, Doug, that both you and I are going to be in NASCAR cities this weekend. You'll be in Daytona, and I'll be up at Indianapolis Motor Speedway covering the Brickyard 400 presented by PPG Weekend. So,
hey,
got a lot on my plate this week.
That's big. So, wait, so when do you go up to the Brickyard, and what else are you doing this week that really throttles the week?
Well, I'll be going up to Indianapolis on Wednesday because it's an 8-hour drive. So I get up there Wednesday, go down to the track Thursday, do some previewing things, get that done, wrapped up, kind of just hang around Indianapolis a little bit Thursday, and then Friday's really where it gets going because we have practice, Xfinity Series and Cup Series practice exclusively on Friday at noon and 1 o'clock from IMS, and then we have the truck and ARCA race at IRP right down the road from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So we got that Friday night, and then you have Xfinity
And you're going to make the drive, right? You're not staying on just one property, or do you have to stay at Indy?
Well, you make the drive from Indy.
I mean, are you
road.
making the drive? I'm saying, are you going to both? Are you only staying at the big track?
I'll be going to both.
Good.
I'll do what I did last year. I'll be at the track and then get there just in time probably for the ARCA race.
Well, that sounds fantastic. So you're going to be ARCA, the trucks who've been out of action for like 3 or 4 weeks now. And then, of course, Xfinity and Cup, so a quadruple header weekend there. And dare I say, the racing capital of the U.S., it is the biggest race of the world. It's the racing co-capital at very least there, Devin. So, Dev, before we get to Dan Elliott here, what will you be providing for those maybe that are tuning in? Because we're putting this on Facebook, and, I have no idea who's watching this. At least 3.5 people are watching. So if you are, if someone's new here, what will you be doing for the racetrack that they could get that they wouldn't get by listening to 5 to Go midweek?
Well, since this is one of the biggest races of the year that I get to cover, a part of the 5 to Go podcast, you'll see a little bit more increased coverage than what we would normally see in a typical race weekend. So you see a little bit more in-depth previews, recap videos from me at the track from IRP, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, after the truck race, after the Xfinity race, and as always after the Cup race as well. Driver interviews, you'll be able to see that. You'll see Truck Series, Xfinity Series, Cup Series on the 5 to Go podcast Facebook page and the 5 to Go podcast YouTube page as well. We're going to post graphics up on the 5 to Go Facebook page, statistical head-to-head matchups for the in-season tournament coming up, or that's actually going to be finalized and finishing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway Sunday. So we got that type of stuff coming up on the docket this week.
But the thing that people tune in for the most, all right, is that instant reaction from drivers, all right, both before the race starts and the driver bullpen during practice and qualifying, which will be Saturday, right? And then, of course, right after the race when the top and most relevant drivers are sequestered on pit road and have to get mobbed by media right after racing for 400 miles on the Brickyard surface. So that's going to be big. And, of course, after the Xfinity race with Truck and ARCA as well. So be sure, 5 to Go Podcast Facebook page, podcast on YouTube. We got the own channel that we basically launched just over a month ago, just to separate it out. Doesn't need to be on mine anymore, okay? And we're really excited about that. So thank you, Devin, for putting in the hours there. And a guy who put in plenty of hours. In fact, if you listened to last week's show, episode 322, Dan Elliott talked about the grueling 500 miles they used to do at Dover. And Dan Elliott, who our Master Maker of Speed, 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee, he still cranks those gears in the Dawsonville garage. Dan, when it poured rain late in the afternoon here about 2 hours ago with 13 laps to go at Dover Motor Speedway, and then the sun came right out again and made a steam bath, I bet you really wish you'd been in one of those old cotton or whatever they were made out of, pit shirts, right? Just sweating with your back to speeding
double
cars.
With the sewn-on embroidery patches. So
don't forget those patches, because they really breathe.
Yep.
Yeah, I bet you were really missing that, Dano.
Yeah, about like putting a plastic bag over your head. No, I was really excited that this race not only got underway, that the weather didn't take this race out today, that we were able to complete, even though we got in, 2 green-white checkers, and be able to finish this thing under green. And that just sort of kind of filled the day for me, because I was not looking forward to weather creating a problem and not being able to see this race in its entirety, as we have complained about over several races over the course of the year.
Well, for sure. Think about how the first 2 races of the year, right, Daytona and Atlanta, Echo Park Speedway, that we felt robbed of those finishes. And honestly, guys, I think I would have been okay if they had just called it, if they couldn't have gotten it dry. Like if they were racing darkness too, which right now as we record, and as we go live, 7:24 p.m. The sunset time, according to multiple people that broadcast this at the track, was 8:10. So imagine if it had taken another hour to dry it, and then now you're worried about, are they going to finish these 13 laps before 8:10 p.m.? I would have been like, call the thing. But if you all remember, over a decade ago, NASCAR made an effort, and what they used to be called the Air Titans, to go out and start blasting these tracks dry. And especially the short tracks, you could get those dry really fast. And Dover's a big short track. It's not a short track, but it's a mile, and they were able to do that. So I really applaud them.
But the good thing about Dover is it's got a lot of banking.
Yeah, so if it flows down. Now, they were worried about weepers coming out of the safer barriers, little streams of water trapped there. And, I'm sure the track was not bone dry when they went back and started. And we saw as this race unfolded, we'll go back to the beginning and kind of walk through too. We saw as this race unfolded, of course, just restarts. This is all you got left. We saw Zane Smith get crashed. We saw Christopher Bell spin out and crash, and most of that was desperation, but you never know if there's a little moisture out there too. So here's how it did. For those that maybe just parachuted in here late in this, we did not have practice or qualifying. Chase Elliott, by virtue of running extremely well at Sonoma, high point standings, had a top 5 finish there in California. Chase Elliott got the pole based on the qualifying metric, and he was the person du jour this entire race. There was a period mid-race there where they had that, I think it was the pit stop between stage 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the pit stops where they had the car with a jack issue. They had trouble getting the tires off, and he lost about 3 to 5 seconds there and kind of got mired in about the 5th position. But then they had a pit stop to end. I think it was stage 2, quick pit stop, starts on the front row, has the race in hand, and then as the pit strategy unfolds, especially with that late caution there, that's when things really started to thicken, as he took 2 tires and lost some position there, and he ended up finishing 6th. Denny Hamlin, 4th win of the season. The old guy, all right, 43, 44 years old, goes to victory lane. And let me just run down the top 10 for you real quickly, and then I want to get to Devin and Dan about how they thought about the race. So Denny Hamlin, he holds off, survives several overtime finishes. Basically, when they had that delay for the light rain, that's when Christopher Bell had long pitted. He had not pitted yet after that last green flag cycle. Chase Elliott had pitted and had done really well, but Alan Gustafson calls him in for 2, I believe it was right side tires. Christopher Bell, who had long pitted and gone from 18th after spinning out, being the only caution for cause in that race, he long pitted, inherited the lead. Then the rain comes the first time, the light rain that we had, and they come to pit road, surprisingly. But then they held their own. Chase Elliott, though, lost some ground to Austin Dillon, who chose on bald tires, old tires. He chose to not pit. All right. And that got Chase Elliott held up, and it ended up being a dogfight between Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. Bell was chasing Hamlin down. And then the big rain came. All right. And then after that, things got shuffled up a little bit, and eventually we had Chase Briscoe get in the mix there very late after the big rain came. All of the leaders from 7th on forward stayed out. It looked like Ryan Blaney in 8th position was the first to pit as I listened to Performance Racing Network, and Devin and I watched this on the live stream here. So that kind of set us up for the finish. Hamlin held off Briscoe and Alex Bowman, who's really come to life these last few races. We'll look at his recent finishes in a minute, and here's your top 10. Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe. Then it was Alex Bowman 3rd, 4th going to Kyle Larson, Ty Gibbs finishing 5th, Chase Elliott ended up 6th in this deal, Bubba Wallace to 7th, Ryan Blaney, even with the new tires, only mustered 8th. How about the comeback for Chris Buescher, who ran like 18th all day, and his cool suit wasn't working at one point, which made it not a warm suit, not a medium suit, but a hot suit.
A boiling bag is what you call it.
A boiling bag, which is what I was called in prison, too. He finished 9th, and Brad Keselowski actually rebounded to finish 10th there. On the bubble, as far as people that were on the bubble, Bubba Wallace kind of ran about 11th all day, but finished 7th, so that clawed out a few extra points. Ryan Preece, though, I'm just going back, he had only finished 19th. Chris Buescher, his teammate, got up ahead of him there and added some points. And, of course, Alex Bowman on that bubble also added some points. Kyle Busch is in striking distance there, but didn't make any noise today. He finished 11th. A.J. Allmendinger, who we really think probably needs to win, but he's still technically within point striking distance. He was the last place finisher on the day at a track that he's good at, too, by the way. Finished 37th. Another one, Carson Hocevar. Do you know what the issue was with Hocevar? I missed that. He finished 35th. And was a bajillion laps down. But he had some kind of mechanical thing going on. Also, another thing I want to cover, too, Ross Chastain finished 33rd. Multiple tussles with Joey Logano, fallout from the Chicago race. We'll get to that later. So I wanted to just get the recap out in the open. And now, Devin, you watched the whole thing. You even sent a text to our group chat reminding you of an old Dover race. So what were your thoughts?
Well, yeah, at first, the first half of the race, really did remind me of an old Dover race, which I mentioned on the podcast last week. It reminded me of the Bill Elliott 1988. I'm not sure which Dover race that was, but Bill Elliott led a bunch of laps in that race. And the relation I made to that race to this current race is because his son Chase Elliott was in the lead for a majority of the race, or a lot of the race, at least in the first half of the race. It seemed like before things kind of wobbled out.
More the first half. Yeah, he had it covered all bases. Yeah.
But it was just one of those kind of standard status quo races that we saw today, and that's kind of what we got until the end when the rain came in. Things got a little hectic, 2 overtime finishes. So we saw that happen, and I think the race panned out better in the end than it initially was because it really just seemed like it was hard to pass for a long time. That's why I think one of the reasons we saw Chase Elliott out in front was because it was so hard to pass. We saw Bell kind of closing in, but then he had issues, and then we really just didn't see a challenge for the lead, and really the difference maker was pit road. I mean, we saw Chase Elliott's crew make a mistake on pit road. He gave up the lead there, and then some other things happened as well. So really a status quo race until the end when the rain came in, and then things got a little hectic there.
Well, it certainly did. Really, if the rain doesn't come, Chase has it covered. And by the way, that's not to take anything away from Denny Hamlin. All right, that's not to take a thing away from Denny Hamlin, who fought tooth and nail. Once that lead was served onto a silver platter by crew chief, I almost said Chris Gabehart. That is so last year. When Chris Gale had him stay out, that just gave him the track position, right? This is very much a track position race. Not to say the drivers didn't drive hard, but you look, Christopher Bell had the fastest car before all the shenanigans, right? Christopher Bell caught Hamlin. He would go high. Hamlin would block and then go low, and then Bell would juke low. Never could do it, and this was very similar to Hamlin holding off Kyle Larson in last year's race. Hamlin has become the new king of concrete there at Dover. What say you, Dan? We finally get to you to actually talk about the race. How did you feel things fell together? Where did this kind of go in your pantheon of things, and how did you think of Chase's days? Sort of, I wouldn't say it came apart, but didn't end how he wanted.
It to me is typical Dover. Not as we've talked about on this program, the fact that you're from 500 miles when I was going and when we raced there, and now we're 400 miles, and that I think helps a lot shaving off 100 miles of this race.
Yes.
But this racetrack is notorious for what happened today. And the element today, two elements to me changed today. Number one was first the pit stop. Number two was the weather was somewhat a question, but it got to be a real question toward the end. And I think those two elements made the difference today and made this race a better race for me, because normally in years past, a car or a couple of cars get away. And as you said, it seems like at Dover, especially, it's one of those racetracks where it seems like if you get in clean air and you get a rhythm going, that it's your day. And the only thing that can mess up your day is the things that happen to you during your day. And I think, as I've told you before on these, that four elements make victory lane: the crew, the engine, the engine, and the four elements.
And the AI.
And the AI.
Yeah. Hey, and look, Chase Elliott got interviewed during the red flag where so there was the caution for light rain, but then there was the red flag that actually stopped the sucker for an hour. They put the cars on pit road, drivers got out, and Chase Elliott told, I can't remember if it was Brett McMillan or Heather DeBow. Those were the two PR and pit reporters, but he said, they were like, hey, so what are you thinking here? And he goes, well, just based on our car, we can make this decision, but how we decide what we do is based on how all the other cars around us react. And while Alan Gustafson, Chase's crew chief, may have excellent handwriting and a big notepad, that all of that information now can be inputted from the satellite GPS data and whatnot into the I'll just call it, to sound really old, the AI machine. And they have the war rooms back in the shops that spit out this result if you want to do this if you want to do that, this strategy if you want to do that. So I would love to see those more up close, but of course they're not going to let us see that. That's their secret sauce.
Yep. And the four elements, the car was good today, the engine was good, and the driver was good. We just had a little... And it doesn't take very much. You just have to be off just a fraction, and it disrupts. And this may be what disrupted the rest of the race for Chase, was you get off of your game, then you start second guessing a little bit, maybe or maybe not, but you start second guessing what your strategy is to the end. And another thing too was the fact that when we got down to the end, it would have been a different story if you'd had more laps left where drivers ducked in and got new tires. If you'd have had a few more laps left, this would have been a different deal.
Like a 30-lap run to the end. Brad Keselowski's former spotter, Joey Meyer, who also one point, or maybe still is, Dale Jr.'s pilot. Joey Meyer, when the red flag came out, said old, cold tires will win this race. Sure enough, now Hamlin's tires weren't like dead old, all right, but they were older than the people that pitted, right? And they were older than Chase Elliott having those two right side tires of Chris Bell. And sure enough, those tires had a chance to rest, so to speak. They put a heat cycle on them, and I guess that helped things out. I don't know enough about tire technology to know what does what, especially
without
in the car.
Being there, I don't know if right side tires help you the most. They would have known this. Our left side tires would have helped you the most.
Yeah.
After you took the tires and let them cool, because sometimes they cool at different rates, the old and the new, and it kind of messes up your balance instead of helping your balance.
And that plus traffic, and clean air was king in this race. All right, now something that was happening mid-pack, there was a point in this race where Joey Logano was going forward early, like in the first third or the first quarter or so of this event, and then the driver that got the free pass during the rain red flag with about 13, 14 laps to go was the 22 car of Logano. There were multiple replays on TNT, and it was referenced a little bit on the PRN broadcast. I listened to him in unit, or I watched TNT and listened to PRN. That's how I took in the race today for the most part, where Joey Logano gave the old heave-ho to Mr. Chastain. Now, both of these guys have wins. They're both in the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. So if this was Chris Buescher versus Bubba Wallace or Alex Bowman and Bubba or whoever, it'd be a different story. But there were multiple times that Joey Logano, I would say the sheet metal shove or the sheet metal horn, but it was the composite bump, because that's what the bodies are made out of, gave him the nudge both times to the Chastain. I saw it at least twice. Now, right before that red flag for rain, Ross Chastain KO'd the wall and was done for the day. As I mentioned a moment ago, finished third. Joey Logano had somehow fallen off the lead lap, which I didn't catch how. And I was watching, I mean, he was a top 10, top 15 car, and he was 21st a lap down. And I'm just wondering if before, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but I didn't see it on TNT, did Joey Logano lose a tire because of another piece of contact with Logano? Here's why. when Logano hit the wall exiting whichever turn that was, Logano was only about a less than a half a straightaway in front of him. Could they have made contact before and then Chastain hit the wall? Did anybody see that? And regardless, Devin, payback doesn't have to come the next week, does it? That was 2 weeks ago that they got mad at each other.
Yeah, payback could come back in many different forms here, and really, tough ending here for Kyle Busch as I'm looking over the
Ross Chastain.
We talk about. Sorry, I got the wrong driver in my head, but Ross Chastain. I mean, we've seen him involved in numerous things before in the past, and we hopefully, in the past they got resolved in the end, but payback can come in, as you say, many different forms.
We always default to what's going to happen next week, but this one happened on the track. And look, Chastain, was running 13th and 14th, and it wasn't like he got wrecked by Logano, but I just wonder if TV didn't catch, and I don't have the subscription to Max to go look at all the cameras. I'm wondering if there was one more piece of contact with him, because Logano had already nudged him out of the way and passed him once, and then it happened a second time, like far later. I don't know, Dan. Did you see the same thing?
See the same thing, but the results end up being the same. This does detrimental damage to both of these cars. And as I've said before in this, is your rhythm of the day, even if it don't mess you up bad to where that you can recover, you don't fully recover. Because in the back of your mind, you want redemption, and if it don't come, it can't come quick enough. So the bottom line is both of these are good cars, good drivers, and it's bad for the fans that are fans of these drivers that they have to suffer through this, because let's just race, blow this out of the way, let's race and have some clean races and good finishes, because right now you're getting down too close to the end of the regular season and playoffs are around the corner, and you sure do want to carry this into the playoffs.
No, you sure don't. That's a great point. Yeah, get it out of the way. Chastain, 33rd place finish. Logano rebounded to 14th. All right, so I guess he gets the last laugh there. There was another incident with Chastain, and you may have seen this on the broadcast too, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse was out to lunch all day in the 47 Hayek Motorsports car, and he was holding up because, again, it was so hard to pass here at Dover. We just got to call a spade a spade. That was the truth. And he was holding up as a lap machine Ross Chastain, who was running back of the top 15. And under caution for one of the stage breaks, Chastain went up and doored him big time and actually got told on his radio, per one of the recaps I read. I don't know. I think it was Nick DeGroot. Reporter Nick DeGroot put this on X. And that he was told, basically in no certain term, don't F with the 47 car anymore. All right, you're done. Don't do that, please, because he's out to lunch.
Another one on this is if SVG hadn't cut a tire down and got laps down, I was really looking to hope he had a good day today.
Yep.
To see exactly where we were at in the scheme of things of the road course deal, because he's caught so much heat about running an oval. I was disappointed that happened. Where do you think he would have finished today had nothing happened?
For those just listening here, I did the just a no. I guess here's the deal. First off, Daniel Suarez kept getting lapped. Now, they had enough cautions to where I don't think he ran multiple laps down. Let me see. Suarez ended up 26th, and the laps aren't listed in the results. Thank you, NASCAR. Okay, but he finished 26th and was the equivalent of 2 laps down. He kept getting lapped. But Shane Van Gisbergen, remember, he got new tires after the puncture, right? And he was able to stay in front of Chase Elliott with only 10 laps newer tires. So you're thinking, okay, he's got speed. But he got lapped later in the race when he was back on sequence, didn't have a bunch of damage. So I think he would have been more in Suarez's camp versus top 15 Chastain's camp, personally. Okay. Now, I don't have the sheets in front of me with all the lap times, but it didn't seem like he was at the back of the pack when he got the puncture. Right, he lost some spots, I guess. But I agree with you, Dan. The penthouse, 2 straight wins, right? 2 straight wins to the outhouse. Chicago, Sonoma, trophy. This guy's going deep in the playoffs. But it shows how difficult getting through Bristol, which he said is his least favorite track. We mentioned that on episode 322 last week. And some of those others will be. That said, they're also deep into the playoffs. They don't need to go hard at Dover. Maybe they were trying something here that could help them later at Bristol. We don't know, right? And we've been saying that about the Hendrick cars. Who's to say that especially the 1 car and the 88, which are deep, solid in the playoffs, if they're not trying something. Suarez and his team, Matt Swiderski led number 99. Whatever they were trying was the wrong thing because he was out to lunch. We saw him, though. How hard was it to pass? He could still stay on the lead lap right in front of Chase Elliott and cause him fits and almost cost Elliott his first stage win of the year. Stage one was his first stage win of the year, Chase Elliott. Yeah, clean air is everything. And just to note, fellow Chevrolet Daniel Suarez almost cost race dominator Chase Elliott his first stage win of the year. Elliott has entered this race with 5 playoff points. All of those were from his Atlanta race win. Elliott also led way more laps in this race than he had led the entire season before that. Granted, Dover's a shorter track with more laps. So, yeah, a lot of stuff to unfold there. Was there anything else? I'll come to you first, Dan, before we move on. We want to talk just briefly 2311 from Dover Motorsports. We want to preview Indianapolis, and we also want to talk about the loss of legendary Georgia driver Rex White, who passed away at age 95 here earlier this week, just a couple days ago. Anything else from this Dover race, Dan?
No, not really. It was, up until the very end of it, typical Dover to me, and getting out in front of the field and getting comfortable, hitting your marks, and just having a consistent, consecutive race to where that you can get out, hit your marks, get your rhythm, and you're in your zone, and nobody is there to mess with you.
Yeah. Hit your zone, right? And once you're stuck in traffic, you can be hitting your zone and just doing it a couple tenths slower. I noticed Chase Elliott had a top 3 car whenever he was out front, usually top. He gets in traffic, 15th. That's just how it goes. Devin, what about you? Any other takeaways from this double sponsored race?
Not really. It was just really, if I mentioned earlier, just a status quo race. It was just pretty much a run of the mill, hard to pass race. On a concrete surface. Just not really too much to take away from this one, in my opinion, at least. For sure.
And it seemed like the cream rose to the top here as far as just the big teams generally did big things. It was a big rebound for RFK Racing. I mentioned finishing 9th and 10th there with Buscher and Kozlowski. In-season tournament now, Ty Dillon gets the free pass on the last caution and is able to stay ahead of John Hunter Nemechek and advance to the final. And then Ty Gibbs, by finishing 5th, one of his better runs of the season, he bests Tyler Reddick, who was a top 10, top 5 car much of this day. When that red flag came out, both of those brackets were 1 position apart. And you thought, is this race really going to end not only with the lead all weird, is it going to end with all these guys finishing 1 position apart? But instead, it was a little bit more spread out by the end of this race. Dev, anything on the in-season bracket? I mean, Ty Dillon said, in his quote on Performance Racing Network to Heather DeBow, was, it is nice to come back to the racetrack and smile again and have something to look forward to. He has gotten his teeth kicked in for years. Some of that just, not great on the driving scale. Also driving sometimes for lesser teams. And with Colleague Racing here, he has a chance for $1 million. And even if he finished second, he enters the 32 seed, Devin. So I got to say, John Hunter Nemechek, also a Cinderella story. He was the 20-something, 28 seed or whatever, whichever it was. But Dev, is anybody going to be rooting for Ty Gibbs at Indy? I can't imagine, except for people that drive Toyotas.
You know what? It's funny about people rooting for Ty Gibbs. TNT just put out a poll on their post-race show, and 64% are in favor of Ty Dillon, or they're picking, well, it said, who's going to win the $1 million? 64% chose Ty Dillon over Ty Gibbs.
So wait. We're not saying who they want to win. They're saying who they think is going to win. Well, that's voting with your heart. I mean, okay. Now, Dev, you're ready to make a case for it. Yeah.
You run Ty Dillon and Ty Gibbs head-to-head last year, and let's say last year was the in-season tournament finale, Ty Dillon would win.
Yeah, so let's see. Ty Dillon would win. Okay, so Ty, what was he? I thought he was in trucks last year.
No, he raced at Indy last year.
Okay, well, what car was it? Did you have the results, or do you just have how
I'm pulling up the results right now.
What did he run last year?
So Ty Gibbs finished 23rd.
Right.
Ty Dillon was in the 33 and finished 19th.
Oh, so he was just running another Childress car. Okay.
But the principle still remains, though.
Sure. I was like, he wasn't full-time in Cup, and there's so few one-off entries now that threw me off a little bit. Okay.
And another thing, too, is Ty Dillon has some good finishes. Now, not anything to necessarily, write home about when you're talking about a normal NASCAR weekend or NASCAR race, but when we're just talking about things in the in-season tournament, he's only finished outside the top 20 one time, and that was in 2018. 2017, 19th. 2018, 21st. 13th in 2019, 2020. His last year with Germain Racing finished 14th there, his best finisher. Okay. Yeah, second to best finish, and then 19th last year.
And you pointed out, Devin, Ty Dillon has only won 4 times in all of his NASCAR starts. All right, 3 in the Truck Series and 1 in the Xfinity. And in 2014, Devin, where did Ty Dillon happen to win his only Xfinity Series race in 165 starts?
That would be Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which would be one of the earlier editions of the Xfinity Series, actually racing on Indy Oval.
That's correct.
Because for a while, they were just at IRP. Before they came
for a long time. And by the way, that race, very controversial. Elliott Sadler called for a restart violation because he beat Ty Dillon or beat another car. I think it was Ty Dillon to the line. And so Elliott Sadler was lined up to win that sucker. And instead, Ty Dillon got the win by default there. His only win in Xfinity Series competition back in 2014, if you can believe that. His first full-time season in NASCAR's second series. How about it? So, all right, Ty Dillon, and he's going to be going against Ty Gibbs. More firepower on the Gibbs side, but hey,
it's the battle of ties.
The battle of the ties. Sounds like what's going on in my closet right now, I must say. They are competing for ultimate neckwear supremacy after I had to buy a new wardrobe for 11 Alive. We'll see what.
My tie collection is ever expanding, and I got to pick what ties. I'm not going to do what I did in Chattanooga when I went to cover the softball team in the national championship.
Remind us what you did. I don't think we know, Devin.
Huh?
Remind us what we did. I don't think we know.
Okay. Well, Chattanooga
just
covering the softball team.
Yeah.
I'm only going to bring like 5 ties with me. Indianapolis, big race. Got to dress up for it.
Okay. I remember that last year. You made me look like a slob for sure.
I actually ruined my tie on race day.
I forgot about this.
I had
how
a
did you ruin
purple
your
tie
tie
initially, and then I went to that blue floral tie.
But how did you ruin your tie?
Well, they were serving lunch, or it was before noon.
It
was right after we got there.
So
they were. Okay. It was like Mexican food or something, and grease got on my tie, and I couldn't get it out.
I remember that.
That was mobile.
That was a top-tier nacho bar in Roger Penske's Indy Media Center, by the way. My only time there.
That was Mobile One oil.
Mobile One. Oh, my gosh, Penske. Okay. Hey, Dan, I've got a question for you. Should this be called the Battle of the Ties, or should it be called the Battle of the Silver Spoon Grandsons? Go.
Well, I was sitting here thinking in my mind, we are swatting at gnats and swallowing camels, as the Bible says. Okay, so I'm more concerned about who is going to win the race.
Oh, is there a race?
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the regular race because this is Indy. And I consider this one of the premier events of the year. And one, if I were a driver, I would love to have in my win column.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, let's look at that. Let's look at that, Devin.
I do want to say this one thing about the...
I'm not discounting the ties any at all. Good luck to both of them. But I'm more concerned about who is going to do the burnouts in victory lane.
I think for the in-season tournament, now that we're at the end of it here at Indianapolis, and Indianapolis being a big race, I feel like this is actually adding a lot more to it. And the reason I say that is because throughout this in-season tournament, I just feel like it's been so difficult to follow because you have, at Atlanta, you had 32 different drivers that were going at it. And even today, you had 4 different drivers. So you had to keep up with 4 different drivers and then see what positions they were at. Now we only have to keep up with 2. Who's ahead of who? And I think that actually makes it more intriguing, easier to follow. Sure. And now I'm actually kind of intrigued about who's going to win this in-season tournament where it was kind of wishy-washy the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I want to look at it. Sure, it is. I think this week was easy because you had 2 pairs of drivers, and they were running kind of similarly near each other. Ty Dillon, John Hunter Nemechek, this spot. The Reddick and Gibbs situation, they were both top 10, top 15. Now, so speaking to Dan's point, last year, remember, Kyle Larson in the 5 cars shows up to Indy, and he's running that same papaya-accented HendrickCars.com Chevrolet scheme. That was what he ran in the Coke 600, and of course things didn't go well. He wasn't able to actually run in that race, and he comes out and wins. A redemptive win. It was a great media storyline. My gosh. He survived a restart, though, where Ryan Blaney was up in arms about how he should have been the control car based on when the caution came out, and he said NASCAR got the rules wrong, and NASCAR's like, well, no, we didn't. And he was upset. He ended up finishing 3rd. Tyler Reddick, who is a step slower than he was a year ago as far as just in terms of the speed of the 45, not necessarily the driver, he finished 2nd in this race. Now, to get out of that, 4th went to Christopher Bell. Bubba Wallace finished 5th. There's a guy that could use a good finish here, build on a solid Dover race. It's Bubba Wallace. Who finished 6th? Todd Gilliland. Todd Gilliland finished 6th, and this kind of has those vibes, that drafting track vibes, at least on the straightaways there. This was a fuel mileage race, by the way. There were some fuel shenanigans going on in this event a year ago. The rest of the top 10 were Austin Cindric, Daniel Suarez, Noah Gregson in the Stewart-Haas number 10, and Chase Elliott.
I will say,
so it's not. It wasn't a name brand only top 10. Just to be clear, go ahead, Devin.
I will say there were 3 cautions within the last 35-ish laps of last year's race, which kind of helped to the randomness of that finishing order last year.
No doubt.
And the lack of a caution, I still hold a grudge about that.
Let's remind him. Remind him, Devin.
They should have thrown the caution there at the last overtime restarted the Brickyard 400 last year when Ryan Preece spun out on the backstretch. That caution should have been thrown. Hey, look, this is a complete. What we saw at Chicago 2 weeks ago, a complete 180 from that, basically. Where Chicago, NASCAR was consistent. There, not so much.
Well, for sure. Although it was kind of the same result. They kept it green for too long until they didn't. Ryan Preece was beached basically on the inside of turn 2 in that race. And we were just looking at it like, certainly they're going to throw it. And as a turn announcer, not even as a fan, I'm like, I wanted one more chance to call the laps. I was thinking I'm going to at least see the cars one more time. And then the caution comes out after they take whichever flag it was. So, that was a tough result there at the Brickyard. Some other drivers, Ricky Stenhouse was 11th, Carson Hocevar 12th, Austin Dillon 13th, Corey LaJoie 14th, Michael McDowell, who was at front row at the time, was 16th, Zane Smith 17th, Cody Ware 18th, and a lot of that, as you mentioned, Ty Dillon was 19th. A lot of that was those late cautions. But that race had a lot of long green flags, single file affair, track position. And, Dan, you're amening that, I guess.
Last year is in the rearview mirror, my friend, and this year is a new year. And I think you've got several drivers looking for redemption, and the pressure is on big time on several of the drivers. As you mentioned, Bubba Wallace is one of them, and you're going to have to win a race to really, really get the pressure off. If you're close to the cut line, you're going to have to win a race.
Well, no doubt. If there's a fuel mileage play in this thing, you can bet these crew chiefs, and Dan's favorite crew chief, AI, are going to have something to say. By the way, the driver that just won here at Dover, Denny Hamlin, he is all about big race wins, right? He's won 3 Daytona 500s. He's won Coke 600. He's won at Darlington. He has never won the Brickyard 400. Could Denny Hamlin, who will have a great qualifying draw based on the metric and everything, get the track position he needs and do that? By the way, remember, this is only our second time back on the oval since they did the 3 years. Was it 3 years? 1, 2, 3. 3 years on the road course. So the last winter before Kyle Larson was back during COVID 2020. In fact, the last 2 times we ran at the Brickyard before last year were won by Kevin Harvick. All right, the year before that, 2018, back when they were running it at the very end of the season or the beginning of the playoffs, Brad Keselowski. All right, so and you look at the list of people, young drivers aren't usually the ones that tackle the Brickyard. Larson's been in the Cup Series 10 years or 11 years now. Kevin Harvick, Keselowski, 2017, Casey Kane, 2016 and 15, Kyle Busch, Jeff Gordon. Going backwards, Ryan Newman, 2013. Jimmy Johnson, Paul Menard's only win, 2011. Jamie McMurray's only win at the Brickyard, 2010. Have we seen a rookie ever or a driver in the first 5 years of their career? Really, you got to go back to Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon, 1994 in the inaugural Brickyard, which was in his sophomore season. So veteran drivers, favorite at this track, of course, totally different car, totally different era, but it kind of played out that way last year. So that's your preview on the Brickyard. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. All right, that's really, there's only one Gen 7 race there. Xfinity Series action at Dover yesterday. Did you guys get to watch any of that? Connor Zilic, rain-shortened race, goes to victory lane. Taylor Gray led a bunch of laps off the pole. Devin, Dan, I'll just ask one of you because I want to look up something about Xfinity at Brickyard while you talk about it. What did you take in Saturday's events there at DMS, Dover Motor Speedway?
Did not get to see Saturday's events.
You go ahead, Dan.
Nope, did not get to see any of the events from Saturday's Dover.
I was hanging out with my mom yesterday and did not get the chance to catch any of the racing action at Dover Motor Speedway.
It's disgraceful. No, your mom is amazing. Wendy's incredible. So, I totally get that. I would listen to most of it on PRN. I was actually driving to Dixie Speedway for basically the second half of that race or so, and then it got rain shortened. The bottom fell out right when I got to Dixie. The bottom fell out of Dover right when I got to Dixie Speedway here in Woodstock, Georgia. And basically, by the time I got to my seats there, my buddy Taylor and her parents, the race was vanquished there. Who won? If anybody remembers, who won the Xfinity Series Brickyard race a year ago? Devin, you were there.
I was there. Do you want me to? I know the answer to it. Do you want me to, or do you want
Go
Dan
ahead.
to guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Cook, bro.
It was Riley Herbst.
And tell us about it, because this wasn't just some ordinary win. This was monumental. I had just arrived in Indianapolis, having to have to drive all day and short sleep, and I missed the race. I was supposed to call it, and I missed it. But basically, if you're still thinking about it, Riley Herbst, I watched on TV and listened on PRN. Riley Herbst took that number 98 Monster Ford for Stewart-Haas Racing and put it on his back, and he made a boss move over, I forget which driver that he passed, to go take that win. It was a Gibbs driver. I'm struggling to remember exactly who it was, but
Watch
he
my
put
recap
that.
from last year on the 5 to Go Facebook page.
Oh, there you go. Everybody scroll back to 2020. I think it was Eric Almirola. I think it was Herbst versus Almirola. Yeah, I think it was a Gibbs. I think it was Almirola and whichever the All-Star car was last year, the 54 maybe. But yeah, that's anyway. But Riley Herbst, nonetheless, the winner a year ago. And then Xfinity had not raced at the Brickyard before that since 2019. All right, 2019, that was Kyle Busch. So who won that? So there you go. That's your Xfinity deal. And then you got ARCA and trucks at ORP. Now, I got to go look up Indy Raceway Park there to see what happened at the truck race a year ago. That's unless you remember, Devin.
You talking about the truck race from last year?
Yeah, at Lucas Oil
I
Raceway
have the
Park.
picture of the driver in my head. I just got to get the name out. Oh my goodness, why am I forgetting this? It
I'll
wasn't
be looking
Stuart Friesen, was it?
No, it was not Friesen.
Who was
I'll
it?
look it up. I'll look it up there. I was just saying if you could remember that, because we had. Let's see where.
I can remember the press conference and how that was set up there, and I remember the driver talking. Like if you weren't there, there's no evidence of it basically, unless you were there in person.
They didn't stream it.
No. How the deal they have it there? It's the press. You're in the press box, and he's just in a corner, and he has a microphone and a speaker's playing and all that.
Well, that's pretty hood of them. Okay,
it's something out of Division II. In some Division II facilities have it actually set up better.
Step it up, Lucas Oil Raceway Park. All right, last 2 times the Truck Series has run.
Oh, Ty Majeski.
Is Ty Majeski.
There we
yes,
go.
Ty
There
Majeski.
we go.
Grant Enfinger won the year before that. There was an 11-year absence between Timothy Peters' 2011 win and Grant Enfinger 2022. Ty Majeski, short track ace, no doubt about it, and he could turn his season around there. Because he and all of ThorSport have really had almost a miserable year there, except for Jake Garcia. He's had a bounce back year, but ThorSport has struggled this year. So Ty Majeski looking to get it done there. Lucas Oil Raceway Park. Okay, let's get out of the race recaps, race previews, and I don't want to get too technical because I don't want to say it wrong. But basically, whatever injunction, what's your functions, that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports filed against NASCAR to try to last ditch keep themselves as chartered teams has been denied. Now, they're still worried as NASCAR could sell out their charters that they already own, because they own charters they paid for, except they didn't sign an agreement. So the judge finally, as we've gone through all these different processes, a different judge, a different court has said, hey, as of right now, these charters are not yours. And really what's been unearthed in all this is NASCAR is not interested in them ever being theirs. NASCAR is not saying, hey, you can sign it now and everything will be fine. And these teams are not interested in signing it now and everything will be fine. So basically where we're at as of this past Wednesday, I believe, 3 2311 cars. All right, Herbst, Reddick, Wallace. The 3 front row cars, Gregson, Gilliland, and Smith, were all open cars. All right. I would love to see the splits on the payouts. Did the other teams get more money, or did NASCAR get more money? I'm sure I will get a quick answer if I were to reach out to PR on that one. But now I'm really interested to see, Dan, how competitive, particularly Front Row Motorsports, stays during this with less money coming in the front. In the end, it may all get settled out and they may end up great, but it's not like they're running with huge margins here, right? I mean, do you think that this could affect their competitiveness, or do they go to the track and just put it in the back of their head? And I think we talked about the distraction last week, right, Dan?
It's going to be difficult to go to the track and put all of this in the back of your mind and be able to, as well as being able to function each day. Now, you're going to try to do that, and you're going to do everything you can possibly do to do that, because you've got to go to the racetrack each team and team members mentally and physically ready to take on the challenge and to qualify and get a good run in and make the race. Once you do that, the pressure comes off, but this is difficult to do, but I think it will be done. I think the finish the rest of the year will be a little bit more difficult, but I think that both teams, I feel, are up to the challenge unless something really out of the ordinary happens to prevent that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't look for that, but because I think they're very well prepared either way. But what this does signal is, just like one of the articles I read, it was down and dirty when it started. It's really going to be down and dirty now on every aspect that happens from this point out.
Great point. Great point. It is going to stay dirty. Denny Hamlin asked about this, Devin, this weekend. Just any more comment? What do you have to say about it? What do people need to know about this? And he goes, wait for the trial on December 1st, right? So
wait for the trial.
Devin, I mean, I guess we're at this point. Remember, at the beginning of this season, it was like wait and see, wait and see. Now we're really to the point of wait and see. So what do you expect, Dev? And I don't mean the result of the trial. What do you expect between now and the end of the season?
I think you just have to put your head down and just race as is. I don't think you really need to change anything. I know you're making less money than you would running as a charter team, but I think you just need to put your head down, keep running your own race, and keep doing your own thing. Don't let this trial become a distraction because, as you said, it's not we're not going to get any information out of this until December, and that's the off season. So just run the rest of the regular season and postseason the normal way you would.
Great advice. Easier said than done, of course. The other things to watch, of course, there's been reportage that Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick become free agents technically if they don't have charters. And we've discussed, like, where do you pull the plug? Does anything really happen mid-season? But I got to say, based on Jordan Bianchi's reporting for The Athletic, other teams have at least kept an eye on that. And maybe after the season, could there be silly season movement that we're not expecting, that bombshell thing? Every once in a while we get one of those if this isn't settled, especially if it looks like the money situation doesn't go right in some of those teams. And by the way, this could be true with how sponsors agreements with teams are. We don't know. This could be, I'm just speculating. I'm not saying it is. Could be true with how the other drivers not mentioned in this agreement. There were rumors out there that Riley Herbst, who's the pay driver, if you will, at 2311 in the 35 car, the rookie, who just mentioned won the Brickyard last year in Xfinity, that his, the family sponsorship he brings in from Terrible's convenience store, Terrible's casino, actually helped buy that charter. Ooh, well, you mean the one that's not theirs? Yeah, okay. How does that flesh out and affect everything? So just, we got to watch that. And it could be it really more affects silly season than it does anything this year. Could be that it all gets settled out. But as Dan said, as Devin said, it gets ugly. Go ahead, Devin.
And one thing I want to say, too, this is more for the off-season, is what's going to happen to those charters? Is NASCAR allowed to sell those charters off to another team or maybe even field a car of their own going into next season before this trial is settled? Are they allowed to do that? That's going to be something to watch out for, too.
Which the teams were trying to get a preliminary injunction restraining order to at least freeze the existence of those charters until this is all settled out. And again, if this all ends in trial, however it ends, NASCAR has said in writing, unless I've read it wrong, they are not interested in these teams signing the charters. And they've also said these teams have no right to the charters because the charters are NASCAR's to begin with, that they allow the teams to give value to the team. So this no one is backing down here. And, this is how wars start, right? Well, in the middle of a war. All right. Now,
sounds like we need to have a five to go podcast outside the trial or the court, wherever they're holding it.
So we'll sit there and do all of the speculation while they're inside talking and know just as much sitting out there as we do at home. Yeah,
and we'll ambush them on the podcast as soon as they come out of the courtroom.
That'll go as well as your Chase Elliott interview.
Take care of that, and I'm going to sit at home and watch everything unfold.
I would love to see Dan Elliott ambush Michael Jordan walking out of a courthouse.
No,
mainly because I love Dan. He'll have more consternation than he did in the Dawsonville Chick-fil-A the other day.
Let me just put it to you this way. If I were Michael Jordan and I lose that case in December, whenever that is, if I lose that, I would probably walk out of the courthouse and say, my teams have been sold. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
See y'all.
Sold for pennies on the dollar compared to what the charters were worth too, which may be the only reason you don't sell them. I don't know, but yeah, it could be the main reason you do sell them. Hey, one thing Devin mentioned, other people out there at charters. Not only are there people, and this is where I started to get cringe a little bit because I've seen the ill effects of my own career of this, private equity. Private equity, people are, NASCAR may not be the most popular thing since sliced bread or something right now, but it certainly has risen stock in the last few years. Private equity bought into Trackhouse, all right? Private equity's been around the edges and the crusts of some of these other teams too, these partners that buy in. There is a lot of money out there that people would love to have a piece of this sport and build a team around it. And as private equity does, probably suck the funding out of that team to go get to something else. But nonetheless, there's a lot of people that want to throw money around. Remember, we talked about this, I think it was 2 weeks ago here on 5 to Go. TJ Purchier, who was the co-owner of Spire, got bought out by the Gamebridge company, basically, the 1001 group. And he has been trying to buy Rick Ware Racing, which Legacy Motor Club says they have dibs on Rick Ware's charter, and they are in court about it.
Well, let me ask you the magic.
One second, Dan. If TJ Purchier doesn't get Rick Ware Racing, and he knows that there are 6 charters sitting over there in a cold buffet in NASCAR headquarters, just as one interrupter. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, what I want to say was, depending on the outcome of the case, do you as a private investor, if NASCAR wins, do you or do you not want to move forward and be a part of that? Knowing what
that would certainly be Denny Hamlin's argument, is why would you want to buy into it if it's opaque and all belongs to them? Hey, but if you're making money, if you're making money in the front.
Yeah, I would have to examine every aspect of this after the trial to know if indeed everything does go to fruition. Then I want to examine every aspect of this before I make any decision whatsoever on my future with or without NASCAR.
That's a great point. And I think so. Everybody has their own personal agendas in this, and not us. I mean, inside of that trial, NASCAR's got their own.
This is all teams have their own speculation. That's all.
Right, but you're bringing a good point. I think this is the kind of thing that Denny Hamlin and Curtis Polk, Michael Jordan's business partner, have been vocal about. Is okay. We're trying to go big money. We're trying to go international. We're trying to super invest. And yet it's opaque. It's not transparent. And this is a paraphrasing by me of their concern. Hence the trial, hence the suit. So we'll stay tuned right here. We really said a lot of the same things we said a week ago, but hey, we're live on Facebook right now, Fireball Turnbull podcast or the Facebook profile page. And we'll have this whole episode. If you tuned in midway and you can't rewind back or you don't wish to scrub back to the beginning, we'll have the full episode up on the 5 to Go podcast YouTube page, Apple, Spotify, GoPRN.com. And I got to do it all tonight because I got to wake up at like 5 in the morning tomorrow to get ready to go to Daytona with my high schoolers. All right, last thing I want to get to here, unless you guys have anything, is the passing of the 1960 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Rex White. He was 95 years old and failing health, lived a good long life. And as Dan Elliott, as I'm sure you know, fellow Georgia Racing Hall of Famer, Rex White overcame polio as a child, and being a short, scrawny guy with several physical liabilities out the world, but hindrances. And he started racing cars and driving tractors and racing cars at a young age to eventually become the king of the super speedway in NASCAR for a short time there. Dan, what were your dealings with Rex? I know you knew him personally. I got a chance to know him too, but let's reflect on him a little bit.
Rex White was probably one of the nicest people, one of the nicest champions I've ever met coming through NASCAR, and one of the finest people. If I needed a favor or anything that he could help me with, he was always there, and he never let me down on anything that I asked him to do. And I know that this was probably about 2012. I was at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and Karen Graham, who was, I think, with Fox 5 then, I believe.
Yeah, sports at Fox 5. Karen Graham, yes, sir.
And Ryan Newman was, I think he was debuting maybe a new sponsor, or they were just doing an interview that compared Rex White's 1960, because this was Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is now what?
I believe Echo Park Speedway.
There you go.
But then it was AMS, so you're good.
The interview she's doing is with Rex White, who has his replica of his 1960 winning Chevrolet sitting there.
Gold Thunder.
It is the Ryan Newman Dodge. I don't know if it was an Intrepid or a Charger he had there with Penske, I believe.
Charger, probably.
and they were doing the interview. She was doing the interview, and she looked over at Ryan Newman's car, who it's just pristine, got roll bars all through it, all kinds of safety items and all stuff. And then you pan over to Rex White's 1960 Chevrolet. It had a seat, a steering wheel, and a seat belt. And she looked at Rex White and she said, there are a lot of safety innovations that have come about since you were the 1960 champion. And he looks at her and he says, lady, at that time, you were just hoping to be thrown clear. And Bob, if you were in a wreck, you were just hoping to be thrown clear of the wreck out of the car.
Oh, my gosh.
It was, and the look on Karen's face was priceless, because it was like, I'd never heard it put that way before, but he's right. You just want to be thrown clear of the wreck, clear out of your car and thrown clear. But
Karen Graham, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see the difference in those two cars and how safety innovations have changed. But back to Rex White, what a gentleman, what a nice man. And I know all the things he was involved in over the past years. Even though he was on up in years, he did a lot of things for the motorsport community that you will hear about, but that have not been talked about very much at all. But he did a lot for the motorsport community in going to events and promoting events and people, and he knew so many people and just a personality himself. And I was lucky enough to get Rex White's. I have his 50 greatest drivers print.
Yes, I think it was called Around the Track or something like that. I see what you're saying. The print of him being one of NASCAR's 50 greatest. I'm sorry,
50 greatest drivers, and it's the one that NASCAR gave to him. It was the one presented to him, and I was fortunate enough to get that from Rex, and proud to have that in my collection.
He's one of a kind for sure. I think it was 2015. I'm trying to look at 2015. He was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. All right, so he was one of the originals in the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, of course, just being a champion and of his stature. Yep. But he went in the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2015, so that was in the early years of it.
The stature didn't even register as far as his stature. Yes, he was shorter, but I
was meaning his stature amongst Georgia drivers being a NASCAR champion. That's what I meant, the stature, yeah.
Yeah, but I agree, but his physical height and so forth, as far as he wasn't intimidated and nobody else was, because he let his driving speak for him, and it was obviously very, very good, because to get the championship, he earned it.
Yeah, he was only 5'4", maybe at the most. He was a small guy, and like I said, the physical limitations that he had, and he was able to shred. I want to but he inducted in the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2015, and he was doing the speech, and I don't know if you all remember this or not, and he fell off of the podium, the poor guy. He was sitting there just rattling along. Maybe he was a little nervous, and he tipped off of the podium. And I don't want that to be the lasting memory of him. I got to, because he knew Captain Herb and you, Dan, really well, I got a chance to hang out with him. And I have a picture. I think it's with some of my NASCAR stuff that's over at my mom's house, because I put it in here, but I have an 8x11 printout of when I interviewed him at David Love's racing store that used to be in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And so I've got to go dig that up there, and we'll get that put on the Facebook page one of these days. Rex White's stats, 28 career wins, but they were all, now he ran parts of 9 years in the Cup Series. His 28 wins were in 5 years. So in 1958 until 1962, he won 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 races. He won the championship in 1960, and he actually missed 4 races in 1960, which was common then. They ran all over the place. 6 wins, 25 top 5s, 35 top 10s. In a different era, his average start of 6.4, average finish 5.3 in his championship year. And then the next years, he followed up with 7 and 8 wins. And after he won 8 races in 1962, and he ran only 37 of 53 events, he ran only 25 races of 55 in 1963, no wins, and then only 6 races the next year, and his career was over. Just kind of all dried up, because it was all very factory-based then. And I think his trajectory changed when GM pulled out of NASCAR, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And they came in and out, the manufacturers did multiple times there through the middle of the 20th century. Rest in peace, regardless of stats, an incredible guy, Devin. Did you, in your years coming to the Hall of Fame, ever meet Rex White?
I do not believe so.
But you never would know this guy was a NASCAR champion. And is it true, Dan, that I think, if I remember Captain Herb saying correctly, Rex White just went, he eventually moved from North Carolina down to Georgia and was staying. I think he lived in Stockbridge, and he was like a forklift operator or something. Just
I
a regular.
I don't know. I didn't know much about his personal history once he came back.
Okay, well, I think if I remember right, he was just working in a warehouse or something, and he's sitting there next to Biff and Robert, and here's Rex, the forklift operator, who is a 1960 freaking NASCAR champion. How cool. How cool. Rest in peace, Rex White there. It was probably more than 10 years ago now. He gave me his car. Hey, man, we should go get lunch sometime. And I was like, I would love to do that. And of course, I never followed through and did that. And I wish I had years ago, honestly, when he was still in good health. So Godspeed to Rex White. Okay, so coming up this week, this is this week's episode. We're uploading it right after we're done doing this live deal on Facebook. And if this goes well, we'll figure out how to link it up with YouTube and eventually do some more, I'm sure, live stuff later on. But the next week, we'll get with you after Indianapolis, after Devin gets safely back from Indy and into Atlanta, and we'll bring more to you there. So time to tee up our final thoughts. Dev, we kind of iced you out on the Rex White conversation, so we'll let you go first with our final thoughts.
All good, all good. We need to pay our tributes to the legends of the sport and who helped build the sport too. But my final thoughts, really, I'm just looking forward to Indianapolis Motor Speedway and wrapping up my time with North Georgia as well. But
yeah,
Brickyard 400 weekend last year was fantastic. A-list facility for sure. If you get a chance, Indiana area, Kentucky area, Illinois area, Ohio area, get your tickets, IndianapolisMotorspeedway.com. Check out the Brickyard 400 presented by PPG or the Pennzoil 250 Xfinity race on Saturday, or even the Xfinity and ARCA races at IRP on Friday. It's a really fun weekend. And one of the cool things, too, is if you get to go to downtown Indianapolis, they rename the streets for a week, or they replace some of the street signs with driver names.
That's
Larson
right.
Boulevard, Busher Street, that type of deal. It's really cool.
Ware Avenue. Ware Avenue.
What do you mean?
Joking. Cody Ware's is. Okay. I mean, hopefully. No, he's one of the 36 main.
Who's
exactly. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Devin. It's an incredible facility there. And if you get the chance ever to go, and I mean, I've been invited, to go hang out with IndyCar Radio Network and see it all. And I just don't break away because I travel so much already. Getting the chance, and at the last minute when Pat Patterson's RV broke down last year, I was in Daytona and got the call, come up to Indy if you can. And I sure figured out a way. And then my flight got canceled, and I only was able to be there Sunday, really. And Devin, I'm so thankful to you because you knew your way around there and drove me to the track and showed a wonderful time. So, again, thank you, buddy, and I'm really glad you're getting to go.
Funny story. That was the only time I've actually ran into traffic pre-race on the media side of things, actually.
Okay.
Tells you the level of this event.
That's okay.
That was because
it's
everybody
big.
was lost because they renamed the dang streets
To Ty Dillon Boulevard. And whatnot.
Yeah.
Dan, what about you, man? What's your 5 to go final pontification?
I'm looking forward to seeing a race at Indy where hopefully they crown a first time or a different winner for the season where it's not been a previous winner this season. Whether it's a new
that would be
winner
our 13th different winner.
Correct. A different winner. I want to see a different winner at Indy. And I'm also going to try to report to you on the traffic in the new roundabout at the courthouse at downtown Dawsonville, because as I was coming back up this afternoon, there was an accident in the roundabout at where they'd done the new curbing and stuff. Obviously, it's made it more difficult to navigate downtown. And the accident was actually where Chase did his circles to celebrate his championship back in 2021, 2020.
2020. Yeah.
Yes.
We flew in the traffic helicopter up over that. That was fun. I said, "Hey, there might be some traffic in Dawsonville."
Back up and flying today.
If only there was still a WSB Skycopter. Oh well,
I think I'm going to
all
do
in the
a
past.
Dan Elliott drone over downtown Dawsonville.
Man, get that drone license, Dan. Get us some of those aerials, bro. Get us some of those
They
aerials.
can't take away what you don't have.
If that is not the most Dawsonville thing we've ever said on this podcast, I don't know what is. All right, no
Hey,
siren
we
tonight.
those aerials of Dawsonville from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
What about?
I could do live footage of the siren going off in downtown Dawsonville.
That would be fantastic. Unfortunately, there's no siren tonight at the pool room there as Chase Elliott
Nope.
dominated but didn't get that big dub. Hey, final thought for me is I did get to go Saturday night to Dixie Speedway, and I went to Dixie 10 years ago as a fan. Then last year I went after a long pause there just to go help announce, and I was helping with a Georgia Automobile Racing Hall of Fame event and a Dixie Speedway event, and so they let me stay and help announce too. But it was a lot of fun. You know, I've mentioned almost every episode now my friend Taylor and her parents are mine and Momo's friend Taylor. We had a rained out ticket from a June race, and Momo and I were supposed to go with her. Well, Momo's in Germany right now. So I just hung out with Taylor and her parents. Their first time at Dixie. They've only just started liking racing in the last 2 months. And while it was hot and there were a ton of people, here's a pro tip to everybody that comes to Dixie. Number one is if you have clear bags, you're allowed to bring in water. All right. And the concession line, I mean, they do a great job there, but it's long. Bring in your water. Number two, bring a chair. Now, they actually got to Dixie before me and went back home and got chairs and came back. And number three, pay the $5 if you care about who's driving these cars and download My Race Pass. So then you can see what the running order is and actually know who's driving the 9 car, or the 15 or the 51 or whichever. That was really helpful to me, because they don't hand out programs anymore like 2003, all right? So, and you can't hear the loudspeaker at every spot on the track, and the scoreboard's kind of dim. So the Dixie is a real fun time, but just put that extra little bit of effort in, and that probably goes true for any big short track you're going to. Dan.
Doug and Devin and I need to go to Dixie and interview Mickey Swims. And Mickey Swims owns that facility, and talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and I think he would truly love to do that. And
Okay.
I think everybody listening would like to get a little bit of the history of Dixie and where it is today and what they plan to do with it ongoing. And I think Mickey would be glad to share that with us.
And a rich history of that racetrack. A lot of people may be listening, not from Georgia. There used to be the Have a Tampa series. Actually, Doug Rice and Mark Garrow for PRN were involved in announcing for that a long, long time ago. The USCS Sprint Cars, that's a national series, will be at Dixie next Saturday, the 26th, by the way. I'm not getting paid to say it. I just want y'all to know there is good local racing here in Georgia and in even Metro Atlanta. Dixie Speedway, just, come prepared. All right. Come prepared. It's summer in Georgia. It was raining gnats on me at one point. They just fell off the pole and were raining on everybody. I don't know how many gnats I ate last night, but I ate gnats. But that's part of racing. That's part of being outside in the summer, okay? So I'm cool.
We'll see if you start growing any wings or something.
Yeah, well, after a couple Red Bulls, all right, we'll be on, all right? So anyway, but congratulations again to Denny Hamlin. What ended up being just a blah race had some spice there at the end of that, so we enjoyed it. PRN will actually, technically, the IMS or the IndyCar Radio Network will be carrying the race next weekend on radio. It's the last TNT race on TV, and then it switches to the NBC USA Network conglomerate there to finish out the bulk of the rest of the season. All right. So for Devin Kupka, Dan Elliott, I'm Doug Turnbull. God bless you. If you actually stuck through and actually watched a whole live stream of this, I mean, we did it before the teardown. Okay. I'm just saying. All right. That's kind of the goal. Now, we love the teardown too. No, but we are thankful for you watching and listening in. And we will be back next week after the Brickyard, where Devin will be on scene with a new 5 to Go podcast. One more reminder. You thought I was done. One more reminder. Devin is going to have all sorts, if you're just tuning in, driver content, exclusive driver videos, even one-on-ones with all sorts of drivers, especially the Cup Series, but also trucks, Xfinity, ARCA, 5 to Go Podcast Facebook page, 5 to Go Podcast, spelled just like that on YouTube, and you write out the word 5 or type it. You don't put a number 5, okay? So check it out. God bless, and we will see you next week here on the 5 to Go Podcast. All right. I know that was a long outro.